I don't really think so, I was asked that by a student, and my take on that is that a tick lays like 3,000 eggs, and I don't expect it to lay more eggs. And the other thing too is the environmental resistance, that's the amount of things to kill them, like, like whether it be fire ants or opossum or wild turkeys, right? I think that will continue because it is so much, it's only so much members of a community can be sustained based on the resources that are available, right? I don't think we will, yeah.
Okay, you mentioned that the ticks lay 3,000 eggs. Is that only once a year? Or
Yeah.
how many?
Thank goodness.
One batch will lay 3,000 eggs. You wish you had a hen like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For those of us that hunt, if we're out in the fall and obviously we're hunting for deer, are there any other things that we should do, watch out for? Particularly, I'm thinking, once we've got a deer and the deer is down and now we're going to be skinning it, whatever else.
No, there's no risk for hunters and stuff like that. Generally, what's going to happen once they're attached there, right? They're likely to fall off once the temperature of the animal drops. Like when it dies and then rigor mortis sets in, and they're going to drop off. But I've read in literature there's really no risk of you being bitten by that thing. And they don't survive long in the house, right? Because they cannot survive they cannot survive like the temperature in the home. Some people do have problems with pets that sleep in their beds with them, right? And I've had a lot of cases where people are bitten by ticks, right? Because the animals are being treated and the ticks can't really stay in them, they fall off and they go and they look for a host.
So they don't die when they fall off, they just fall off and look for
Yeah,
something else.
well, depends. I think there is one, I can't remember which is the repellent. There's one that says that if they
have to bite.
once they bite and then they pick it up from the blood, right?
Yeah, because we have a dog, and I found, we were walking on the trail, and within a week I found 3 dead ones on him. So I inquired with the vet, and he said, yeah, they actually bite, but they don't obviously attach, because as soon as they bite, it affects their nervous system, and then they die.
It's my neighbor has treated her dogs, but you see, we don't do so much with animal health, right? We deal with human health, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you did also ask a question.
So, you said hunters won't be affected by it? What about when they're skinning the deer, if they have an open cut or something?
No, it's not transmitted by that.
Through blood?
No. It's
From the
not,
blood
it's
of
not
the
like
deer?
that. Yeah, not like that, not like a deer.
Okay.
There is screening, like if somebody has active Lyme disease or want to be a blood donor, right? That will
No,
be a
you
different
can't
story, right?
donate.
That'll be a different thing, right? There's no test to prove that you're Lyme disease negative, right? So I don't know if you know that. No, there's no test because the bacterium, it actually damages your immune system and so that the body always believes that there is this bacterium inside and it continues to produce neutralizing antibodies. So if you go and do your test, you're going to get a high T2 level, but it doesn't mean that you're sick. Yeah. So any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks for your talk. I just was thinking through the logic of spraying DEET, given that it's a known carcinogen. Like if you are checking yourself after you walk, and if you're dressing, if you're wearing appropriate clothing, and you bathe after or whatever, and you're vigilant with your pets and all of that, like, do you really need?
You don't really need that, right? I mean, like.
It seems like a kind of like another bad thing that you're kind of introducing into your system to combat the bad thing that you might get down the road if you happen to get a tick, right?
Yeah, I think risk is all based on a balance that you could take. Like for instance, me, I have been looking for ticks in the woods for how many years? For over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never bitten by a tick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing is, like, sometimes you're lulled into complacency, like you go in the woods and you see a bird you've never seen before, you're just gone to see what it is, like,
Yeah.
and then you go home, and then a lot of the stories I've heard about tick bites, people are not aware that they were bitten by ticks. They felt that they had a skin tag, and they're trying to pull it off, and then they recognize it, right? It's not like a mosquito bite that will sting a little,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
They don't, right? But it's up to you, like, you know, I mean, like, all we could do, we are not the researchers, right? Whatever I have given you there based on those concentration and how long it's gonna last, those things are all published by the Ontario Ministry of Health. You see? So, it's up to you, yeah?
There are a few properties in the village where they've let the grass grow to a point that it is almost shoulder high.
Wow.
Both sides of the sidewalk. If you drive out of town and on the east side, driving up County Road 29 here, there's a few properties where I won't even take my dog on that side of the sidewalk. What can we do?
Well, I think, I don't know, like, what's the municipal property, bylaws here, but I think you should ask the property standards guy who's gonna come, but I know in Belleville, it's a little different, because they will actually serve a notice on the person, and that if the person doesn't comply within a time, what they do, they send their staff, cut it, and they attach it to their taxes, like, but I don't know what operates here, right?
Yeah, I just find it ironic because I drive to Wellington or Picton or Bloomfield,
Yeah.
and I don't see any of that.
Okay, so I'm gonna
But-
save that for later,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get some information, and we are gonna use up, we are so packed, so last question,
Yeah.
because otherwise we
So
really have to
regarding the
get
deed,
this
so if you spray, because for mosquitoes, I'll typically try and do my clothing, right, because it will actually repel them somewhat. Will that work as well for ticks, or do you have to actually have it contact with your skin?
No, you could put it on the clothing too, right? But you could also put it
Yeah, a
on the
little bit on
outer.
that, yeah.
Yeah, but I have never used none, you know. I have never used any, right? All right then, well, thank you. If you guys have any other further questions, you can send it to me. I will be happy to talk. Sorry, I can't talk more because you guys have a lot to get done.
We can have a whole day just
I know, listen to me, yeah, I know.
Maybe another time we will endeavor to have just a meeting just about that and have folks be able to come out and ask you.
Yeah, I have quite a standard one that it will take you about over a little hour. Yeah. Yes, I have them in the back. Go quickly.
If you take a quick second to have a look while we get set up for the next thing, but we do have to get out of here for the Legion, and I got lots to get through. So if you have questions about ticks or anything, please do email us at concernsforcara@gmail.com. Go to the website, find us on socials, whatever.
Oh, I was just running
And
through it.
you have to get squared away.
Yeah, one is in Gorge, one was feeding off a guy. I pulled it. It was a tick? We take it away? No, it's okay. No, it's okay. Sorry.
But the ones that happen to get back and get now, doing alcohol, and I can see that it's over there.
And Toby and I keep calling them in. Down. And when I was
Good
driving,
for a quick snack break, grab your coffee, and throw us back in the
healthy
next
straight down. Why doesn't he call?
No.
I am. We don't walk on the trail.
Middle of the road.
Yes.
But you know how that works.
So, we started about 15 minutes late, so we're pretty much on time for how we started, actually. So I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order here at 11:02. Oh, and, I'm gonna be as fast as I can with things, but obviously there's things we absolutely have to do. And one of the things I would really like to say is, I know a lot of folks put the land acknowledgements in as lip service, but I would like to read this one out, because I feel like it's a good one. Anyway, Consecon Area Ratepayers Association Incorporated acknowledges that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and more recently, the Haudenosaunee peoples. These peoples were all, through different periods over many recognize our colonial and recent histories have impacted our relationships as diverse peoples together and changed our relationships with the lands and waters here, here where we all call home. We seek to better understand, to be guided in present actions and in planning by good principles from inclusive perspectives to secure a future of Consecon, an area that honors our obligations and celebrates our rich histories. We come together today with respect for this land that we are on and for the people who have and do reside here, with an awareness that we are responsible to those living here long after we are gone. And I hope that our actions as the Ratepayers Association, you see us making an effort in that regard. And who are we? So we started out as, how about I read my slide properly? Counselors. I'm going to hand it over to you shortly, Dave, because you're going to do a much better job. Counselors, I would like to welcome Chris. I did get regrets from the mayor. I know Sam had hoped to be here, and I would also like to welcome Janice, who did make it here. And Roy normally makes it out to things, so I'm sure he had something busy he had to do, and he is usually out here and engaged. So thanks to Apti as he's out the door. Really appreciate that. And as I said, PEC staff are coming in later this morning, one on Zoom and one in person if he's caught the dog and can manage. So we've got some good information for you. Okay, so who are we? Picture's up there, but I'd like to thank David and Lynn, and I'd like to thank Dave and Donna and all of you who volunteer, and also people who couldn't make it today. Sam Sinopoli has started out with us on the board, but he very quickly found he was too busy, and things happened with Janine that he just got waylaid with looking after things there. And Geraldine, of course, would be here today if she had not broken her hip. And I'm going to ignore Zoom for a minute, and people can get in when they get in. Okay. Did I miss anybody? Bobby Jo couldn't be here today. She's on course. So thanks everybody for your work, and that's who we are. Attendance we took. We established a quorum. You've got the number is 11 outside of the executive, which we needed 10 non-executive and 3 minimum executive to have quorum. So we're in. Voting rules. Am I handing that over to you yet? No.
Not yet.
Okay. 1 vote per member. Right now in the Constitution, which we're still operating under, the most recent was the 2016 Constitution, every household can have 1 membership, and that household then gets 1 vote. We're going to be itching to change that moving forward, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. So for today, though, 1 vote per member, which is a member household. There's no voting by proxy in any form, and we get to establish the protocol, says in the Constitution, so we'll walk you through what that looks like, but I'm just trying to go off of typical rules. Motion, second, discussion, all in favor. We're not doing ballots, we're doing it by hands. If you are not a paid up member, or a member with an IOU guaranteed through Donna's stern eye as our fabulous treasurer, please do not vote. Thank you, because it will confuse things. Typically, a person who's not a member may not speak on any question without the leave of the chair. And the chair today is going to be David. So, talk to him if you want to speak. We're a little bit off track. Did anybody want to see a paper copy of the agenda? They're in the back. Paper copy of the old minutes in the back, and the bylaws in the back. You can grab those while I'm chatting if you want, but in short, we're doing this right now. I do have to go through the minutes from last year. We have to vote and approve those. We have to look at the financial report, which we've got ready for you today. We'll talk very briefly about some list of accomplishments. Then we're going to get into Constitution on the bylaws and why we're changing. And it's only 10 minutes, and I'll tell you more about that when we get there. We're going to have a call for nominations. If anyone would like to join the board, we could really use your help and appreciate any efforts. It can seem daunting, but you don't have to be at every meeting. Anyway, think about nominating yourself. We've already had APT in to talk about ticks and Lyme. As I said, we're going to have bylaw in before we adjourn the meeting. Next. So, I do need to approve the agenda. Donna, can you flip that over? My secretary's missing today, and just take notes of the motions and seconds, because I'm trying to do too many things at once. second. Okay, I move to accept the agenda, and Karen White seconds. Any discussion on the agenda? Anyone opposed? No hands. Great. All in favor. So the minutes. Oh, sorry. All opposed, or any opposed went by, so it's carrying. It's good. I don't mean to run it like a circus. Sorry. Okay, so the minutes from last year. Are you in yet? No? Did I pass this over? Okay.
You can keep on going if you want.
I'm happy to. You stand up and talk whatever. That happened at the Consecon United Church. There was some of us there in attendance, people who were not. We did have a quorum. We had to work really hard last year to get a quorum of those 10 non-executive members, and we were close again today, but our membership is growing, and I'll tell you more about that. So the approval of the agenda was motion seconded, carried. We approved the previous minutes. The challenge was that meeting was happening after the COVID gap. And so we're kind of mostly playing by the rules, but doing the best we can and navigating some complicated times and not having a previous AGM to rely on. So we did approve the previous meetings minutes and say that we're doing the best we can at that time to keep ourselves on track. During COVID, the Ratepayers Association, under the leadership, had no meetings at all for 2 years. So it was that recoup time, and we are on the way up, which is great. Laura Bear gave a beautiful welcome and annual report, talked about the Go Backs bus coming in. I had somebody ask the other day if the Go Backs bus was going to come back, and we're not getting a lot of requests for that. I can talk more about that after the meeting, though, so I don't know. I haven't checked in with the Backs bus, but I will look into it. Sidewalk repairs, replacement of the welcome Consecon signs, the blue ones, they're in a state of disrepair. It continues to be on our list of things to consider. We can't afford it, so we are fundraising. If you want to give some funds, if you have fundraiser ideas, let us know. But anyway, back to the agenda, minutes. That was discussed and nothing moved forward with it. Lynn gave the treasurer's report. She took over from Geraldine previously. We had a balance of 581.40, which you'll see on Donna's report as the incoming amount. New membership fees and donations were then accepted, and we had some resignations. Valerie, thank you, had been the secretary and had resigned, but she has lived up to her promise here in the minutes to be a helpful member, and thank you for all that you do, Valerie. We had our elections, and you saw who we are, so that's all outlaid there. I'm pretty sure I don't need to read through the whole thing. Anybody want me to read it?
No.
Good. I like that. Other business, David Bear had motioned that we give a $75 donation to the facilities that we use throughout the year, and that was each the Masonic Lodge and the church, the United Church Hall. Donna had seconded it. We had a little discussion on how we don't have a ton of money, but yes, we did have enough to pass it. And the meeting closed at 9 p.m. So this is me printing it up on the screen. It is available on our website, but I do need to know if you find these acceptable. Please only motion or second if you were actually present to say that these are an accurate capture of last year's meeting. Anybody want a motion? Move.
A motion that we accept these minutes.
Okay, and Dave? Discussion? Anyone opposed? Oh, sorry, Karen?
Do you keep a running attendance of people that attended these meetings? Because many of us don't remember whether we were there or not.
Yes, yeah, we do. I don't have it up,
Okay.
but we do have the sign-in sheets for
So
who
we
was
have
at
to
it.
assume Dawn and Dave were both there.
They were absolutely both there. Yeah, and I captured them in a photo even, so.
All right,
Guaranteed.
proof.
Photos are no longer
Okay,
a stable
seeing none opposed, the motion carries, and,
documentation.
we are done with the vote. I was supposed to introduce you as the chair a lot ago, I'm sure
No
of.
big deal, everybody knows me. So financial reporting, per our, annual meetings that we have, so Donna, I think it's your turn to just give us a quick little overview of financial reporting.
So we started the year with $581.40. We brought in with donations and memberships $1,899.17. And we had debits of $48 for bank fees and other expenses at we actually have, plus 150. 100 we loan to CARA PEC Fresh. The money will be returned when the contract is ended, and then we have a $50 float that's always available. Should we-
Gonna leave this screen up for a second to see if anybody has questions.
Is there somewhere, a more specific identification of the other expenses, because that's a huge amount of money, what,
Mhm.
100,
Yes, we have a
1,100.
breakdown, I can give it to you.
Anybody else want to see the breakdown? Can I reach? Alright, anybody else need one? They're up here on the table if you would like them after. Donna, did you want a copy of that? You've got yours up there?
Oh, I have it.
Okay. So I've just summarized them on the page, but I'm not sure if anybody has any questions for that. Tell me when you want to click, Donna.
So any further questions, you just want to approve and vote to approve, so anybody got any further questions, we can just go ahead to approve.
The treasurer would seek approval.
So am I making a motion to accept the treasury report?
No.
Oh.
No.
One more question. Calendars for fundraising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw them over there. So you spent like $500, how much did you get back from it?
It's up on the board there. We spent $488.11 and we got $687.37 back for $199.26. And we still have 5 calendars to sell, which are on sale today. They're still good for half a year and they're only $10.
Bill, the answer is 199.26.
Okay. Mike?
Motion to approve the treasurer's report is drawn, and if we can get a second, then we can have discussion.
Second. Karen, second.
Karen, yep, Karen White?
Okay. Any opposed?
Oh, now it's just time for discussion, sorry.
Okay.
Just the one last thing about, in terms of those membership dollars, and I, jumping in, sorry again, Donna. But I threw these numbers together for her, so I'm gonna speak to them real quick. Is that when we first got going after the big COVID slowdown, we worked really hard collectively as a community to get folks out and get re-engaged, and we did have 27 members at that time, which was wonderful, and then some of that momentum fell off, and that's okay, and we sought to rebuild, and we did some work, and we had Smokey help us through his leadership here, and we had 14 members. We already have 16 members before the meeting today, so any of you that had signed up for memberships at the door have added to that number already, and we still have 7 months to go, so in terms of just feeling positive leaving the meeting, not only is money going up, but so is membership going up, and that money's not just in membership dollars, but I figured that's something really positive to note in terms of trends, so we don't walk out here going, what are we doing this for?
Are funds, is money donated, not membership, but money donated, is that income tax receivable?
No.
I'm just wondering if there's a way, through maybe the donation in future to make membership allotments available for people who are less privileged and maybe don't have $20 floating around in the year but might want a say or a vote.
That's a fantastic idea, and I think we will absolutely work on something with that. You won't see it in the bylaws right now, but that's something that we can work on an internal kind of policy to figure out, and I know a lot of membership organizations are moving to finding a way to make membership accessible to folks who otherwise don't find it accessible.
It's sometimes, I mean, I lived in the city for a long time, but sometimes making spots available also diversifies the community of members, right?
Good, okay, so
financial report that we've drawn up. If you wanna see the documents, they're also transparency, we put them up on the website, so you can go there and look, and if you have questions, again, drop us an email, talk to us on socials. Try not to knock on my door. I mean, you can, I'm just kidding. But it's easier if it's an email, because I can handle that.
So list of accomplishments. Toby, you can start, quickly go through this so we can keep on track, but.
Very quickly, I've just got a list, hopefully everybody can see the list, there's some pictures up. I am really excited to say that we had, open meetings a couple of times throughout the year. Transparency was an issue, why some of those initial members to CARA had dropped off, was feeling like the group was not transparent and they couldn't come out other than at the AGM, and then they just find out what happened. So we did hold a couple of meetings, and we had some great events, and we had some great ideas that came up at those meetings, just like again today, and we did take those into play. So Roy Canal had mentioned at the November meeting, why don't we do a Christmas brunch to make sure members of our community can get together? And that's not necessarily in our main functions to liaise with municipality and bring ratepayers' concerns forward, but it was a way to make sure that we're still serving our community and getting people out, so
And I
appreciate
would like to say kudos on that front. My wife and I had spent celebrations already in the city with our family. It would have been just the two of us, but we came out, we had a fabulous time with our friends and neighbors, and do it again? Hey, I'm all for it.
Well, you guys were a big help, so I'm glad you're in for it again. We did also to get governance in order, which I'm about to talk about in a moment. I would like to thank, though, Peter for that, who couldn't be here today. He lives in Ottawa sometimes and sometimes here, but a very active member. We also need to thank Val for her efforts and bringing a team together to make the village absolutely beautiful this Christmas. And we have a new sponsorship program. We had the first ever history fair, which was to celebrate what Consecon is, and I know that history is my beat, so I'm kind of bringing in a thing that's maybe a little outside of ratepayer stuff, but it was to celebrate things that our community has done in the past and hopefully engage folks in the history so that they can come up and know more about the village. So I made it work in the and what? Oh, and absolutely, as you see on the screen, PEC Fresh is the huge one that they needed a partner organization to be able to come into the village, and I cannot thank Helga enough, oh there she is, for being our volunteer coordinator and making sure that that runs as smoothly as it does, and everybody in the room that helps out with that. I know you guys are coming out en masse for all kinds of things.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the sponsorship program, please?
Sure. Before there was a bit of a challenge to figure out, could a business have a membership, could a person have a membership, how are we gonna manage that? And when we were looking at changing from constitution to bylaws, which we're legally required to do, that conversation came up, and then how are we voting and what are the interests? And we still want businesses at the table, but so if businesses are looking to advertise and just show their community support, it's $50. We had 2 community sponsors last year. Go to the website, you'll see them there. Essie Loza, which is unfortunately no longer, but they put in $50, and so they got thanked in things that we put out, and they were up on our website as a sponsor, so they got to say, hey, we're supporting the community. And in-kind donation was given by Michelle at the coffee shop, who let us use her yard for our sign space. So that was in lieu of $50, but it was an in-kind donation, so she showed up as a sponsor. So it's just another way that we're trying to find that we're keeping membership voting specific to what property owners and renters and people who live here and work here, commercial is included, but make that about those issues. If we're looking to just, for the merchants mill to put in $50 this year so you guys can all still know it exists, then that's a separate thing. So sponsorship is just businesses showing up for their community and helping out in that way. And it's not.
Can sponsorship be done by an individual, or does it have to be a business?
Yeah, if an individual wants to be recognized as a fabulous community supporter, then we are happy to do that. It doesn't have to be just for the advertising. It tends to fall to companies who are interested in making sure that they're recognized for showing up for their community.
And if we do a printout or anything, there's logo would be on any kind of
So I'd
advertising.
have to create a White's Way logo?
Yes.
Or we would just thank you. Just thank you. So we do, and it's a little bit like different, so donations and sponsorship kind of
Yeah.
mesh, but we're trying to figure out how to make that work reasonably and keep the membership clean for voting. Any other questions on our events, functions, items?
So going to governance and constitution, so maybe we just do a Coles Note version since we're kind of jammed for a little bit of time from Toby. And, yeah, so governance, go ahead.
The real Coles Notes version, as I've alluded to, is that we are absolutely required to get rid of our constitution and turn it into bylaws by October. And we didn't want to wait, so we already got it done. And again, Peter Angel, who is a member, has been an absolute angel in bringing his corporate governance knowledge to, and his not-for-profit knowledge to us, and relying on, relying on him a lot to get these things sorted out. So it is up online, there's examples on the board, or on the table, we can walk through in detail, but the short answer is we have to be compliant, and our board group has already gone over multiple reviews of it, had great conversations with him. He wasn't writing them to make the rules for the corporation for us. We looked at old constitutions, thought about the cultural history of the organization, and asked him questions. He asked us questions. It was a really great consultation. He just did the heavy lifting of putting it into paper after the great questions were asked using the guidelines. And so we have thus approved to bring to you the new bylaws that we hope will be enforced leading today. Key changes. We have had for many years requests to expand the area because we are Consecon and area, and the KOK1TO was a great way to look at the area to start, but then that, KOK1T0 includes over on 62, they get their mail in Consecon, but people closer in Carrying Place are no longer in KOK1T0, so how do we grapple with that? So, designated area for the corporation includes in and around the settlement area of Consecon, in Hillier and Ameliasburg wards bound to the north by the city of Quinte West. So it includes our Carrying Place partners who also have similar kind of West End issues, remembering that the purpose of our group is to take up our members' concerns and advocate for them and liaise with, work with, shout out for them to municipal, provincial governments, look for grants that serve the needs for those of us in the West End, and we are a similar group here, so that was why we went with that. And to the east, we just thought Rednersville and Wellington's already got their own community association, they don't need a group of community association folks. And to the south and west by the water of Lake Ontario, so those are really easy borders that way. Point is that we wanted to expand because more people are engaged and show up. Karen White is a great example. She has been here from the beginning. She's always out volunteering. She's a fabulous member of our village and environs, and not recognized by the previous constitution. The membership definition is more in line with the legislation. We did add in an item to not have their membership privileges revoked. That doesn't mean that we are looking to revoke somebody's membership privileges willy-nilly, and we're not going to be suggesting to the incoming board that that would ever happen without a responsible process in place. And that policy and process hasn't been written, but it's just making room for knowing that on the off chance somebody shows up who is trying to torpedo the organization by making a bad name, by being a pain in the butt at meetings, by just being belligerent, by whatever, I don't know, I'm imagining worst case scenarios, but that's something that happens in the legislation framework that is in there for those management opportunities, if they so arise. I can't see we would ever have to use it, but we did add it in with an eye to putting those policies then in place for what that looks like. The other thing that changed about the membership definition is that residents, by the definition, shall apply to owners and renters of residential or commercial property, regardless of whether their occupation is year-round or seasonal.
able to get into the housing market and own a property, but they're still a valuable member of the community. They live here, they work here, they play here, they have a say in what happens in our area, and they have concerns as maybe water ratepayers, whatever. They're still engaged as community members. And it's not to take up the Airbnb. Notice we didn't say short-term accommodation folks. We mean seasonal for people who are here part-time. Just because, and that was a conversation when Sam Sinopoli stood up to say he would be part of the board a couple years ago, and some folks were outraged with, well, you don't even live here all year, why would you? And that lack of community, that feel of accepting everyone who lives here, works here, plays here, was a real affront, certainly to Sam in the moment. And he was like, well, why the hell did I stand up and do that? And it was a bit hard to watch us do that as a community. It was very harsh. And we have this terrible situation with, did you live here long enough? Are you a loyalist? What color are you? Whatever, all these issues of what do we look like as a community. We just wanted to nip that in the bud and say we are all here living and playing and working. We all have. So that's what we're offering. Membership fees, we're leaving them at the $20. We haven't changed it.
Maybe you should go back to that one last line that talked about the membership.
Oh,
maximum.
yes, sorry, I did buzz through that. The other thing is, now that we're looking to have every person who wants to say can have a membership, does three things. It gives us more membership dollars. If both Mike and I can buy a membership out of our household, or both Bill and Paulina, or whoever, it means we get a larger nominal role, which is also great as an advocacy group when we go to council to say that it's more representative of how many people are actually showing up and engaged in the Ratepayers Association. And it also means that for folks who live at the same address, who may not agree on principles, may have a different vote, they can do that. Yep.
One question, when you said that you're opening membership to everyone, is that when people who live in the trailer parks, if they pay $20, they become perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you bet, because this is their residence for 6 or 8 months of the year, so yeah, absolutely. So that's the difference though was between seasonal, and we said seasonal instead of short-term accommodation, because we don't want to, I rented a house here for 2 days, so I'm gonna show up and make decisions about the town.
But if you own a house that you rent out, are you welcome to be a member?
Yep, you don't have to live here. If you own property here, then what happens in this area as a taxpayer matters to you. And whether you own commercial property or residential property, what we are doing matters, yeah.
Perhaps you just want to speak to the reasoning why we gave a maximum of 3 individuals at the centers.
Yeah, did you want to, because I'm talking a lot, or do you want me to?
Do it, Dave. Do it, Dave, go ahead.
We were looking at the possibility of, let's say, a frat house, something like that, where you end up with a bunch of individuals, maybe they're all over 18, but if they're all living in the same house, we did not necessarily want the possibility to start to rear its ugly head of people coming in and either putting their names in as residents of a certain property just in order to sway a vote, right? So we wanted to make sure that the voting process stayed as true to reality of what's going on in our community as it could be. So we kind of looked at it and said, well, 2 people is a fairly common thing that's going to happen anyways. Quite often there's going to be a possibility of a third person. The chances of it going over and above 3 people is possible, but slight. And there has to be a cut-off point at some point. So that was where we left it, was that we felt 3 was a reasonable number to cut it off at.
And 3 is more than 1, and these aren't set in stone. They can always be amended down the road. We can try it out, and if we feel like we want to up it to 4 or 5, because we've recognized there's whatever, we can do that. Yep, Dave?
Question, you're talking about residential or commercial memberships. What about association memberships? What about the Legion or the Masons or the church wanting to have, if they would wish to participate, would an institutional category be appropriate?
Yeah, sorry, and I didn't read that part out. Sorry about that. Reside within the designated area of the corporation or legally represent a business or not-for-profit association, and I'm assuming that are Masons, the Legion, and the church,
All
is all
not-for-profit.
not-for-profit associations, right? Yeah, so we did think about that because we wanna make sure you guys are absolutely included too. Thank you for asking, because I did miss that.
So it means each member, in order to, you have to be a member in order to vote. So it's not one vote per household, it's one vote per member.
But you can have a membership as you, Dave,
Yeah.
and then somebody from the church can also hold a membership but they're then coming
Well,
here
they
as
would have to
that.
have a designated person that would do
Right,
the
and then
voting.
that's up to your not-for-profit to designate them with their
Yes,
responsibilities.
exactly.
Not
I
up
just
to us
want
to say.
clarification on that.
Membership fees, as per, one fiscal year, we're just going from January to December, which is our fiscal. So if you paid today, you're good for the rest of this calendar year. January first, we'll be looking for your money again. Quorum, the quorum regulations are now in line with what the government is suggesting, and there's no suggestion in the government regulations that there has to be any number of directors, or that the directors can't make up the membership numbers. And we struggled with that twice now to have 10 non-executive committee members. If we have a very full executive committee, then that takes up a lot of our membership already, that then isn't part of the quorum. So we wanted to change that. Sorry, that title says quorum, and I talked about quorum, and I had a different paragraph in there. So the other paragraph in there was supposed to be on the next slide, and I overwrote it, is that members may suggest amendments to the bylaws or articles at any time. And we encourage you to come out and participate as members. Be engaged. You don't have to be on the board to be engaged, but if you see something in the bylaws you don't like, it is not written on slate, and we're just accepting them so that we can get compliant before October with the government of Ontario. And if we need to tweak them thereafter, then let's go ahead and do that. So with that in mind, Michael.
I'd like to make a motion that Consecon Area Ratepayers Association change its amendments and bylaws from constitution to bylaws and accept the proposal presented by the committee.
Awesome. Thank you for motioning to accept them, moving to accept them. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
Oh, everybody's at it. Great, thanks. Thanks, Lynn. Any further discussion about them? Anybody opposed?
Any
Motion
abstentions?
carries. Oh, yeah, I should ask for that too. Anybody abstaining from the vote? Okay, thank you.
Everybody's favorite time, which is call for nominations, and this is for president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and members at large. I know everybody likes to get involved in this, so, do you call for president first? How do you wanna handle that?
Yeah, so it turns out that by legislation, we don't have to call for specific positions, though we always have done that. And we haven't yet been operating under the new bylaws and the new legislation out of Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporation Act. So I am gonna ask from the membership, what's a consensus? Do you feel like you would like to vote in your board of directors by position? Or are you okay with just voting in people who are willing to be on the board, and we will figure out from that pool, or they will figure out from that pool at their meeting, who's best suited to which role?
I like the second option.
I'm seeing some nods on the second option.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion was to vote in just the list of directors and leave them to choose the best person for the position thereafter.
Show of hands.
And, sorry, who was the mover? Karen White,
Karen,
and Mike was the seconder. Any further discussion? Any abstainers? Anyone opposed? Nope, okay, carries. Thank you very much. So that then brings us to just looking for who would like to participate for the board of directors. Can I get nominations from the floor?
As a board of director or as a member at large?
So a member at large is a board of director as well. Yeah, and I know the terminology gets a bit mucky because we've used members at large, directors at large, the difference between a director and an officer, and really it's all the same pot. Whoever comes to the table will then figure out who needs, what we have to have is a president and a treasurer. We'd really like to have a secretary. And and then thereafter we can figure out, if we're having a vice, if people are just being directors at large and taking up committees or what have you.
I nominate Toby.
I accept the nomination and I will stand if needed. Karen?
I would just like to nominate myself as a director at large. I would like to be involved
Wonderful.
with this a little bit more.
I would absolutely support your nomination. That's wonderful. Thanks, Karen. Steve?
I would like to nominate Blanca to be on it.
Ooh, good idea.
I was just gonna say that.
Would you accept the nomination?
I haven't paid my, so I can.
Do you have a serious IOU in with Donna? Do I
Yes,
get-
she does.
I consider that paid. Not having
And
the
we
cash.
know where she lives.
You'll send the voice over if you don't pay the
It's
claim.
being recorded, we know you're okay.
That's why I'm
We had somebody that
You accept the nomination, that's fine. I know that David, you're stepping down, and Bobby Joe has stepped down for sure, and we thank you very much for your service over the last couple of years, in different ways.
I nominate Donna to stay on as treasurer. She's doing a fabulous job.
I will accept.
Oh, good.
All right.
What's Mr. Shepherd's position?
I would like to nominate.
Leaning against the wall. He's sitting down.
He's holding up the wall?
Yes.
Steve, thank you for the nomination. However, I'm a little
A little busy?
busy at this time.
Okay.
So I must unfortunately decline. However, I would like to be considered as a muscle member. How's that?
I like
I'll
that
assist.
term.
I'll assist wherever.
Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Bill McMahon. No? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Phil plays on the go right now, if you
Yes.
play somewhere?
I decline.
I get that, Bill.
Bill, we don't love you anymore.
It's okay.
Nominate.
It's okay. I appreciate the
Tom?
nomination.
No, I'm sorry. I've got too much on my plate.
Okay, Sue Holmes was nominated, but also declined, appreciate it.
Can I nominate now?
Well, you can nominate whoever you want. But in the interest
I'm
of
waiting
time-
for her to throw Sue at me.
Thank you very much, but
You're
not going to continue or involuntary.
So, they own.
Are there members in the back who would like to nominate themselves in the interest of time?
Are you looking at me?
I am.
I don't really know what it is that I'd be nominating myself for, like,
Then
I
you're
don't.
perfect for the job.
Yeah. I don't know what to
You'll
do.
fit right in.
I mean, I'm so ignorant of it, and, yeah, so
We-
I feel very shy to nominate myself, not because I'm not a
Well,
complete
don't be shy,
narcissist,
I'll nominate her.
but because I don't know what the job entails and what it means, and I
It's
am
about
also
a
pretty
meeting
busy.
a month, no more than, no less than?
No, it's
It
less
depends,
than.
it depends what the executive moving forward wants to do.
Yeah.
It's typically not every month. Sometimes we have more activities on the go. It's as much as we wanted to make of it or could make of it. And people travel, they snowbird, they do whatever.
I would be happy to nominate myself as a very weak, pathetic member. I just don't want anybody's expectations to be too high.
That's fine.
Yeah, because.
Well, have you looked around this room?
These people are overachievers.
Just really well. Just putting it out there, there's an excellent Christmas party at the end of the year on it.
If I can get folks who have been nominated and accepted to stand up, just so we see where we're at, instead of just on Donna's paper, if you can stand, if that's okay. Does anybody else in the room want to join this fabulous team?
How about Lynn? Lynn, are you involved?
Well, if you needed to,
Yeah,
whatever.
we do.
Is that a yes? Okay,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't stand up, or you can, okay.
Looks like you haven't done enough.
Does anybody, going once, I'm supposed to ask 3 times, going once, any more nominations?
You were sitting behind me.
Any second call
I
for
want to nominate
nominations?
this lady right here.
Thank you, but no.
Okay, third call for nominations? Looks like we've asked everybody in the room. Anyway, okay. For a vote,
2, 4, 6, 7, anyway.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Oh, all right.
Toby. Dawn.
6,
That's a good.
The vote
round
is
number.
on, do you accept the slate of officers in front of you?
Ones that just got down.
Aye.
I would like to motion.
I make a motion to accept the slate of officers as presented.
That's my son does.
Whichever name you caught first or second things on it is fine.
Who is the seven?
You're the seven.
I wrote my name down.
Okay, so.
Voting,
do I-
Karen White,
Yes.
Blanca, Lee, Catherine, Kay, and Lynn Tom. So
I have Karen White.
Oh, no, she's there, I said Karen White.
Yeah, Blanca?
I got six.
I got Blanca.
I think it's six.
It's six.
I thought it was seven.
Oh,
Okay.
six.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, six, okay.
Six.
Okay.
Well, that would just fit around your kitchen table.
Any more discussions? A vote? Anyone abstaining from voting? Anyone opposed? But that's your slate of officers. Talk to me, Janice. That's a,
No.
okay. I have a question.
I don't know.
Okay. I
I
just
don't
wanna make
have
sure what's
bifocals,
skipping
so
over.
I either have to take them off.
Sorry, I forgot to turn that off.
Okay, so we've done this, so moving forward, we're gonna have Garen, sorry, I forget your name, Garen Young, bylaw officer from Quincy West PEC, to give us talk about our favorite subjects.
We got lots to
which
talk
is
about.
No-mo, property maintenance, and I guess reporting of issues, residential issues.
That's Prince Edward County, not Quincy West.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks for that.
We just want to clarify.
Okay. So Garen, it's you now.
Thank you.
Is it alright if I sit down instead of talking, or talking? I'm gonna have to do that, but, okay, so I came out, with just, a little information as to what's going on, and I find in enforcement, I prefer to hear it from you guys, like what questions you actually have, rather than I regurgitate a bunch of stuff you may already know over a topic you're already frustrated on. So I would like to turn it open to what the most prominent property standards issues that we're experiencing out here, and then I can touch on those, like, those particular matters.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
Let me just do a quick overview,
No, let's go with the question.
He has a real good
because
question.
I can keep it very short and sweet.
Thank you.
so the big issue that I'm finding here in Consecon is that our property standards do not seem to be at the same level as they are in other towns within the county. And when phone calls are made because people's lawns are so tall along the sidewalk that it isn't safe to walk pets through it because it's shoulder high,
Mhm.
and it takes weeks for something to happen, I don't notice any of those issues happening in Wellington, Bloomfield, or Picton. In fact, I'm noticing the lawns are pretty low.
Okay, I can sort of touch on that, I think I know exactly where you're going, so, what I,
Also, you can also, because we did have a discussion about tick.
Yeah.
ticks And all that encompasses, so I think.
That's
not-
another
not trying
concern
to,
for that.
yeah, so the ticks and stuff I would have to leave to HPE, I think.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but I'm just saying overall,
But it
it's an important
needs
discussion
to-
to have regarding ticks and no-mo, that's all I'm saying.
Absolutely, I think Albert as well as meeting
I'm
speak
just-
to the,
I'm just letting you know, he's up on the screen behind you, and if we can welcome Albert, who's here too, also
Hello.
from the county, and I'll let you guys, Albert, can you hear us
kind of
okay?
collaborative.
Sorry,
No, that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
the floor is yours.
You guys
So-
are sharing.
With the complaints and the response times, I wouldn't be able to, I'd have to take that question back to my supervisor, Mike Kelly, and we could come back with some information at a later time, for the complaints, but the timelines, from what I heard from you in there is it's the timelines, the response times to this. The property standards bylaw is linked to the, building code. So when we put a work order in place, so it's the work orders and the timelines to do it. Legislatively, we're required to give about 19 days or 2 weeks for someone to comply once a complaint has been received. The one thing that we want to try to push forward today is that you can report something before it has hit I pulled in and I parked beside here and I saw the 3 foot long grass.
Yeah.
That's just one example. You can give us a call and report that issue before it has happened.
Where do we call?
So that's gonna be, I brought a bunch of complaint forms, Because that's the other portion of it is I gotta talk about the difference between a proactive and a reactive bylaw, which I think will sort of help with why some bylaws are quicker response times and others have a longer time frame. So on the complaint form, it will have the contact phone numbers for the bylaw office that deals with the property standards complaints. Dealing with each individual complaint, the timelines can change depending upon the issue that is being presented. If there's health and safety or a risk to life, they can do what's called an emergency order, so we can respond in a much quicker timeline. Something like long grass, I know it can perpetually lead to other problems, but that is, say we were looking at a 12-inch, if you gotta wait until the grass is 12 inches to report it, you can reach out and let the office know at 8 inches, you know, when it's still probably 2 weeks away from getting to that threshold that there's a problem at this property or a potential one, and bylaw staff can then flag it, and we have the authority to investigate it. Our issue where we are bound is the property standards bylaw is a reactive bylaw. The provisions in it state that we can't take action without it being complaint driven. So we need these complaint forms in. As soon as we can get them in with a name, with a description of the complaint, we can then take action on it. The reason we need that information is because if we have to go to court to get this resolved, the original complainant has to come to speak to that. That's the hinge there.
Darren, quick question.
Yep.
Does that property owner know who's making the complaint?
If it goes to court.
If it goes to court, they will. The municipality does not just arbitrarily disclose that. We would redact any information through an FOI request, but if it does go to court, that information is available to the defendant.
Part two of that question is, if, let's say I live across kitty corner from it, and I'm always putting in that complaint as proactively as I can to stay on it, because I know that's a complaints-driven system, do they just know about the one that they're taking to court for, or do they get the history to see that that's been an ongoing complaint from the same home?
From the last 20 years.
We should bring up the fact that they have a son. You
Well,
can't see
well,
it
we'll get to
anymore.
that in just a second, but yes. Yeah, I
so
think so, Donna,
all
sorry.
of the information, it wouldn't just, if there was a history of that file, the entire history, just for continuity, would be present. The best practice, I should say, would be better for me to word it, would be to have it presented. I can't speak for what all the, but the best practice that the municipality would want, I would assume, would be that the entire file goes with it.
So it would look less awful as in a neighborly way if, well, maybe not more awful, maybe it will go the other way around, if we all got together and ganged up on a property versus
There's
one
more
person
of
being
us than
behind
there
them.
is of them.
On the same tract, as far as lawns go, that same property owner, are they not obligated to maintain the lawn that is on between the sidewalk and the road? Or is that the county's?
No, that's a boulevard.
Yep.
Pardon, sorry, Councilor Lang? I'm gonna, Councilor Maynard, did you want to speak to that?
Well, I don't, unfortunately, the county is not responsible for cutting these boulevards, so either the homeowner does it, or because there is no budget or no mechanism for the county to come around and cut the boulevards.
So can we put in the bylaw complaint form to the county as the receiver?
No, well, what I'm saying is the county is not obligated to cut those boulevards.
Yeah, it would fall under the property owner's
Okay, but
responsibility.
they're from.
Anybody can, though.
So shouldn't they be fined if they continually don't cut their grass? Isn't there anything we can do?
No, I'm just talking about the boulevard, the
Yeah.
part between the
Right.
sidewalk and the street.
Right.
So if somebody
Exactly.
leaves the
They are
boulevard,
not-
they're not responsible
They
for
are
it.
not, the homeowner is not responsible, the county is not technically responsible.
Now my other question.
Sometimes people go and do it anyways.
Hold on, just, sorry, take it.
So
Just got a question.
if that's the case, what we're hearing right there is it's not the homeowner's responsibility to cut that boulevard, and you tell us it's not the county's responsibility to cut that boulevard, yet now with tick infestations, etc., it's now becoming a health and safety problem, because we don't know what's in the grass any longer. There could be sharp objects in the grass that can't be seen by kids messing around. So all of a sudden, now this becomes a health and safety item. Now who does it fall under?
So, for the boulevards, I did turn it over to Councilor Maynard before I finished, I do apologize. is we will look at the parcel of land, so sometimes a boulevard will fall into a parcel, your property line, your property lines. In that case, the responsibility would fall onto the owner to I cut the boulevard in front of my home. That is maintained, it would be again through the bylaw complaint form to get that issue addressed. Currently, just started flipping back to what we can do about taking action. Currently, if you can read between my lines because I can't give any direction, with the way the bylaw is written, and there are many bylaws up for review right now, the only enforcement mechanism that's in place currently is to go through and issue an order, wait the 19 days, give them and then put the order in place. Different things that are being considered during this review, and again, nothing's in stone, but I would suggest definitely keeping an eye out at the council meetings and the committee of the whole meetings, is having a administrative monetary penalty system incorporated into like a grass cutting bylaw, to where we could try to encourage homeowners who don't want to cut their grass to pay it to avoid a fine before we even get to that part.
Especially for these perpetual
For the
problems.
perpetuals, yes. Now, again, I don't know exactly where that's at with that development. That's Mike Kelly, my supervisor, is currently working with our director on that. I may or may not be involved. I do a lot of bylaw amendments, but at this time I do know they are looking at options to address those concerns, because we do know that taking 3 to 4 weeks sometimes to get a resolution on it, it does not help.
Next, Mike.
Donna, did you have something?
Donna?
I was just gonna bring up that this one particular, not next door, but
Yep.
there's another one that you can't see, but in amongst all that stuff was a sign that said this was bee friendly. Well, there isn't a flower to be seen in that weed. So does that sign make them?
Are you
not
I'm
have
right
to cut
here,
their
Donna.
grass?
Just tell me how you
So
feel.
I was going to say, I'm going to turn that over to Albert. He's here to speak to the whole no mow and the naturalization.
So what happens though with, for instance, this empty building that's next door to us here? Obviously, there's nobody there. Obviously, there's nobody taking care of the lawn. Can it not be taken upon the town, the county, to come in and take care of that property while there's nobody there to take care of that property?
And send them the bill, whoever owns the property.
Can't you put it on their tax?
Just not-
So I'm going to just pause everybody for a moment. I'm going to turn it back to Albert to answer the no mow revitalization, and then to what I can, I will answer to that, the private property, public property question.
So, Albert, over to you. You can hear it.
Somebody needs to.
Okay, just a sec.
I know we're gonna
Oh,
work
hang on
on
just a
this
sec,
later.
we're working on a sound issue there, sorry, Albert.
Dave, try the sound on the side of the TV.
I don't know why my sound on the laptop is not going through the television. It's not even focusing through there. And we don't have a mic, do we?
Yes.
Try again.
Mike is coming.
Go ahead.
No, go on.
Oh.
Bit better.
Yeah.
Okay,
Everybody come close. I can hear. That's good. Thanks, Albert. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yell. So I'll make sure that that noxious weeds list link on your website makes it out on our website too, so you don't have to go hunting. I mean, obviously everything is best if you can go right to the source, but I'm not going to copy and paste, but I'll put the link there to try and help you guys out.
I would also put a copy of the bylaw, because the bylaw has the local fees. So the council has established a list of local fees. It's a smaller list, in addition to the noxious uses. So they've set aside plants that are known to have issues that are not on the noxious weed list, but represent an issue from a health safety perspective or another perspective, basic perspective. And they're there as well. So things like Japanese knotweed, there's some kinds of poppythorn, purple loosestrife, there's a couple others. So if you want to include that, that might be helpful as well, so I suppose.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And you guys hear this, so then there's the difference between how high is the turf grass, if there's these noxious weeds, and then the county also has their own weed list, just in case you were not hearing that, to differentiate between what's naturalization and just a disaster. Or neglect is a better word. And I'll get on my garden, I promise.
Majority. I just wanted,
You can go right.
the list of what is allowed is certainly much greater than the rather small list of what's not allowed. And this whole naturalization thing it's pretty
I
common.
know there was a big landmark case in Perth. I think Albert may have more information on that one. That kind of really set in stone this.
Deciding what's what?
Yeah. Like there was the naturalization.
I didn't hear much of that, but I'm guessing it's about the case and how it got out.
Yes.
So there's multiple cases. I think the first one started in Toronto. There are some in Perth. There are a few kind of dotted around the province there. But basically it comes down to the fact that people are able to express themselves on their own property through naturalization of their guns. It's not meant to be an escape from keeping things the way they should be, but it is something that we can supersede. It's shown that basically how these things are pursued. So we've been trying to work with various groups who are researching this. In fact, the University of Toronto has a really good group that is looking at how to source these things, how to walk the line so that you're supporting naturalization, which is important from a biodiversity perspective, but then also being protected and making sure that things aren't becoming too unruly. So there is a line there. And we've chosen to walk it by separating out turf grass and one thing, and going to hayfield. It's not naturalization, and using noxious weeds, because if you leave something long enough alone, noxious weeds will pop up like that. So does that help? I'm sorry, I didn't get most of the questions. I want to make sure I answered.
No, you are answering, and I'm getting a lot of head nods in the room, actually, Albert. So if you can hear me, you're doing a great job, and I appreciate your flexibility with our glitches here today.
Does Mike have something?
Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, Catherine.
So I have a question about property maintenance, so a separate issue than lawn maintenance. And it's personal because I bought a property a couple of years ago in Consecon, and I've put a lot of money into it, and obviously it would be nice if my neighbors would at least take care of their properties a tiny little bit. And I'm kind of surrounded, I'm like an island of pretty, in an area where there's a house that's a power of sale that has garbage sitting outside and has for months and months, and then beside it, a house that was torn down because there was a fire in it, and they took everything away except what they decided they didn't want to take away, which is like this mound of debris for some reason, and like a piece of a tree kind of lying there for no reason, and that's all full of grass as well now, and it's just like pretty ugly as well. And then to my left, there's a property where the owner's MIA, and it's entirely a parking lot of like mobile homes and cars that are rotting away, and it's an old, the property's an old mechanic shop, and anecdotally the guy couldn't build a house on it because of like whatever soil repatriation and possibly the water being close by for septic, but instead it's just this like literal parking lot, and I've never met the guy in 2.5 years. So can I complain about this, and then how anonymous is that? Because obviously I don't want my neighbors to all think I'm the come from away, biatch who's like grumpy about who's NIMBY. Like, I don't
Yes.
feel that way about it, I don't care, but at the same time, it would be nice if they would at least make some effort.
Absolutely. So to answer that question as simply as possible, and with the way the property standards bylaw is currently written,
Yeah.
without a complainant and a completed complaint form,
Yeah.
we cannot take any action. So unless that bylaw ever becomes proactive driven or a process is created to make portions thereof, or they set, like, it would require bylaw amendments.
And are those legitimate complaints?
Those would be, I would say every complaint is a legitimate complaint, because if it's not necessarily outlined in our property standards bylaw, it may be a zoning issue, or we could direct you to a provincial body if it could be the MECP, the municipal, that deal with oil drum. You know, if you got an oil drum open, that's not gonna be a property standards issue, but.
Just a quick question, the building right next door to this,
Yep.
which is a really bad eyesore, everybody knows about it. Janice said, is there any way we could put a fence around that building? Because to Dave's point, from a health and safety point of view, that building, that residential building that's been vacant for years since I've been here, is waiting to fall down or waiting to explode or waiting to a fire or something.
Well, our neighborhood kids go in there playing.
Yeah.
So there's a few issues. You can look at property standards, but when it comes into structures like a building, you can also reach out to the building department at that point. They're going to be the ones that, if there's any imminent threat of that collapsing, they potentially, through the building code, would have the same options we would to put emergency orders on the property to close it down. We just can't go in and close it down arbitrarily. Generally, unless it's outlined in the bylaw, it does require a court order to shut somebody out from their property.
Well, they're not even living there.
Which is where I think, though, that people have already gone, like, that's already been happened, and they put the boards up to keep kids out. Albert wanted to say something, and I just recognized he's behind you, so you didn't know that. Albert, you were gonna say.
Darren actually took my thunder. I was just going to say, when you get to the stage where it's less than just a front yard or an actual build, which means you operate a process procedure, that the provincial bodies and stuff, they have further reaching power on companies' matters. So the MECP
So would that still go through, who would we be sending these items to? Sorry, Albert. Who would we be sending that to get that addressed, though?
Want me to take that, Albert?
Yeah, do you have the number? You know the number?
Yeah, I can also give it to them. I've got a few. I deal with both our MECP officers down here, so I could definitely make sure they have that valuable number. So before I leave today, I'll make sure you have that MECP.
Here's the spill. So if this is resulting in spill of some sort of material that still appears to have an environment, that's an even more pressing emergency. And there is a number specified at the MECP just for that type of situation.
Yeah.
Do you have further questions?
Now, can you repeat what he said?
Yeah.
Because none of us can hear it.
So I'll just so what Albert was saying is that if you are looking at a spill or you have any kind of toxic or material that could harm any natural resource, the MECP is a provincial body that can come in and they will address that issue. They have a lot more authority through provincial legislation as provincial offense officers to enter onto that property, issue orders, do what they need to do to get the job done. And examples of that would be vehicles who have breaking down cars in them. You could have oil, gas, or other toxic chemicals leaking out of there. If you are suspicious of that, you could submit a complaint form to the bylaw department. I would still advise that, as it does put it on our radar. But you could also reach out to the MECP, the Ministry of Environment and Climate Protection, and they have two officers. I have both of their numbers in my phone because I make regular calls to them when we're dealing with property standards issues and we come into an open drum of an unknown substance. We let them know if there's deteriorating vehicles in the yard based upon a complaint. We'll let them know just because of that risk of that spill.
Oh, Al.
My question was just.
Then I would ask you to contact me directly, and I can help shepherd the whole process. So I'll take on responsibility for all of this.
And on that particular property,
My extension is 4004.
Okay, can somebody write that down?
I will put it up, and we'll make sure you get the extensions out of here as well. Well, I guess we will, because you're on this now.
I feel like my role's forming, like.
One question, Donna.
I was just following up for Catherine, because you said an amended if the bylaw's amended, so right now she can't, if she puts in a complaint form under your current bylaws, can anything be done there?
It can be done, we would come and we would investigate, and if there was non-compliance found, it would follow the current outline procedure, which has this, 3 to 5 week time, well, that's 3 to 4 weeks just to get to pass the decision of us taking action. Then after 19 days, in the case of grass cutting, we have to reach out and contract that to come in, and based upon their workload, it depends upon when they get in, so sometimes you can look at the 6 weeks. So with the way the bylaw is currently written, that's the time. There's no administrative monetary penalties that we currently have written into the bylaw that would allow us to try to speed up them cutting it by issuing a fine. We have to follow that. Oh, Albert, we have to follow that procedure.
I should just reach out, Janet, I believe in the grass and weeds bylaw that was updated, we did, both in your district and penalties component to that. And I think the time frame, I have it written down, the time frame that we have here is an order to be issued in 17 hours after, sorry, the compliance is required no sooner than 17 hours after the order is issued. That's what we have in grass and weeds. So there is not just weeds present for grass upon a certain height. I think this would play.
It would play.
Am I right there, Darren? You would know this better than I would.
Yeah, so I haven't, that's one of the few bylaws, Albert, that I didn't mention earlier, that my supervisor is currently in the process of creating and drafting other bylaws to address these issues. That would be an example of one of them. They have an administrative monetary penalty option, so while we would look at the property standards bylaw, we could also look at using an enforcement mechanism in the case of the noxious weeds, through that option. Thank you, Albert, I wasn't aware that they finished that bylaw.
One final question from Dave then.
So, in other municipalities around Ontario that I'm aware of, they have instituted, whether it be a temporary bylaw or an actual bylaw, for certain periods of time for cleaning up of discarded vehicles. So it's specific to vehicles. And they make a big deal about it, and they say, if you've got a vehicle or you know of a vehicle on the property, then let us know, and they get them picked up, removed, and taken. That's north of Toronto, up in the rural area north of Toronto, the Lake Central area. So I know they do it up there. They actually go out, they've got tow vehicles ready to go, within a certain couple of week period, and they remove vehicles and they get rid of them to the recycling them.
Yeah, so that would again circle back to, and I can't comment on the municipality.
But the drive comes from the municipality in that regard.
And the bylaws are driven by residents and tourists, generally health and safety complaints and concerns or the well-being. So unless our bylaw is updated, they more likely have a proactive bylaw or proactive aspect to their bylaw and procedures written out to accommodate that. And that's what I was mentioning earlier, that unless it is discussed, unless our bylaw is amended to allow for a proactive approach, we are reactive complaint driven. It's not that wouldn't be an option, but it would be something that I'd want to err on commenting too much on. Is that something more my supervisor, director, and council would work together on, and I would more or less just be involved in the research aspect of it.
So one final question, Mike?
And this is more of a statement for you two gentlemen. If you're gonna talk about instituting a fine for non-compliance, for no property maintenance, if we're gonna charge someone a parking ticket between $250 and $500 for parking too close to the beach, then I suggest that please feel free to implement something that has some teeth. $500 an occurrence, $1,000 an occurrence. For all the people's time that this is taking up, for these
Okay, we hear you,
vagrants,
baby. We hear you, baby.
I'll make sure I take that feedback back to make sure that the fines are geared appropriate to the occurrence.
commensurate to the wages of those involved as well.
We don't, our fines aren't driven that way.
Well, the fire department does.
The fines in all the areas, but around the provincial parks, due to health and safety reasons and the need to get emergency vehicles in, I was, along with Councillor Maynard, actually behind lowering the fines in all of these areas to $75 and $100, which is after researching all of our neighboring municipalities who have waterfront access, is the exact same fine structure that they have.
better access for locals.
And we have better access, and we're hoping to improve that, not that I wanna get into the parking stuff, that's what I deal with on a general basis, but there are more things to come, excitement.
Albert?
I'm just calling on the grounds of the bylaw specifically association. So there is the first penalty of $200.
Of how much?
$200 for a first offense.
Okay.
Plus the
Does
cost
that include
of
the cost of
Hold on,
cutting?
Albert, sorry, could you finish the last part after the 200? We had some questions and I wasn't able to catch the rest of that.
Yeah, no worries. So just want to say $200 first step. So it's an initial, I guess, fine to start at.
Yep.
Fine to go to 400. And so that's
Every fine.
It's increased a bit more significant.
Is that in the bylaws now?
Yes, yes, that's in, so that's that one new bylaw that I just didn't wanna comment on that we had coming. Albert confirming, so what he was saying is that a first offense under that, we can issue a $200 fine. A subsequent offense, depending upon the timeline, the turnaround in that bylaw, I have not looked at it, let's just say for conversational purposes, it's 3 days, I think, 72 hours. And they can take action and potentially lay a $400 fine.
Right.
And that's before we've even gotten out, cut the grass, and transfer that back to property tax eventually. So it is designed to not be the difficult part for us is we can't be punitive with bylaws. It is frowned upon. We would get in big trouble. Judicial reviews, it's a bad idea. So we'll try at 200 and 400, and then if compliance is there, then great. If not, I imagine council or staff would review it.
One last final question from Val.
Just so I understand, is it the more complaints that you get, is the action quicker, or just we need one?
We need one complaint just to take action, but the more complaints we get, it does, I
Speed
don't
it
wanna make it sound bad, but it does.
I'll put those on the website
That's a
too.
good way to put it, the more
So do you have like
complaints.
15 sheets there?
So I can do these, I can wait around if you guys wanted to fill out a few and take them back, and if you just wanted to keep one and make a ton of copies.
Yes.
Just leave it everywhere, people will
The
be thrilled.
email address, the phone number for that office, and the full-time officers are, on that.
Is it a digital form as well? Like,
It is available on the county website.
Yeah, okay.
Fill that online.
Yes.
We're gonna ask Aaron questions after, he's still sticking around, but I do wanna, because Zoom is about to time out.
Yeah.
And I wanna say a thank you to Albert
Yeah.
for being here, and
Thank you.
especially for your patience and putting up with, like I said, our technical requirements or lack thereof here, for me trying to figure out technically what's going on. I appreciate your time and your information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you calling and being up to deal with that first.
Yeah, well, next time we'll get you out here. And maybe by then we'll be talking about that no-mow May, which is a whole other thing we didn't get to touch on today.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Awesome, all right, the new board will keep that in mind.
I will stick around, I'll just make myself off to the side.
So, no further. Dave, one last thing I just wanna say is, for PEC Fresh, myself and Helga off here, if anybody's got any questions about PEC Fresh, we're not the fruit and veg market, come and see us afterwards.
Thank you. Adjourning the meeting. Thank you for your attendance, and Toby, do you have any closing comments at all? Or?
I did get shared a presentation, on the bylaw changes and naturalization that Albert was gonna go through with us, and I will let him know that I'm posting this up as well, so this presentation you'll see the details of, again, we're trying to hear that we need to be transparent, we understand that that's the way of the world and it's important, so, if you're seeing anything that looks interesting, go to the website, check it out. Speaking on the website is we did have Consecon Area Ratepayers Association.ca. There was a glitch in the machine in terms of who was hosting and whether or not they had the capacity to give us back our domain. It's expiring soon, so we will get it back soon. For now, we're doing conseconarea.weebly.com, because that's a free-ish one to host. It's on stuff I've sent out, but it is, yeah, but I'll do it again. conseconarea.weebly.com. And if that's the only one you use, don't worry about it. When we get our domain back, I will just dump you into the right spot when we have it there. So I'll keep you hooked up. Only other comments is thank you to the new board, thank you to the old board, and thank you to all of you who took out a beautiful Saturday afternoon to be here.
Thank you. Do it before it's on.
We have to get going if I want to go. Yes,
Walking that line.
and now the boulevard, like, because so CARA said, okay, like I know they're coming back, but at a pretty slow rate. I know they've done it. I said, okay, so between this 911 and this where the support it's always been
Well, I think they should.
No, I think they are.
More available.
Yes.
Thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate you guys joining us here today. If you don't have a membership yet, go and get one. If you do, thank you again, and we'll see you out at the next meeting. Bye.
That's pretty fancy. Is that a Wi-Fi?